We are back here on the show. John Ramsey and Robin Black joining me as we look ahead to UFC 208. Ronaldo Jacare Souza will be in action as he takes on Tim Boetsch going into the last fight on his UFC deal. This is a guy that has had 20 fights inside of the UFC. Probably not anything you expected out of Tim Boetsch when he was tossing David Heath into the side of a fence at UFC 81, as we go way back. But this is a fight that certainly Jacare, I think rightfully, is heavily favored in. However, with Tim Boetsch, we've seen that ability that if he sees an opening, he has power to change the dynamic of a fight. I just don't know if he can do that against Jacare.
I think one of the reasons why is because Jacare is such his mental strength is through the roof. He's a competitor. He understands how to win. He's been in jiu-jitsu competitions forever. The goal is to constantly be a champion. He was a champion in Strikeforce, and people believe he should be fighting for the UFC championship. So he doesn't mess around. He has an assignment. He goes out and he executes. Tries to knock you out with his hands. If that doesn't work, he pushes you up against the cage, drags you to the ground, either beats you up there or he tries to rip off an arm or choke you out. And if that doesn't work, he'll try to figure out another way to beat you. That's the Jacare way. In addition to that, he's so strong and he's so crafty. His fight IQ's through the roof.
Yeah, and we don't see him enough, so people tend to forget how good he is.
He's a little older, though.
Yes, true. There's something interesting happening with guys who came from the world of jiu-jitsu. Their line of thinking of how to close the distance and get to you is different now. You took these Jacares and Damian Maias and you taught them single legs and double legs, and everybody had to do that. And then now they're going back to closing distance single-mindedly the way the jiu-jitsu guys did. And it's really interesting to see because everybody can stop your double leg now, and everybody can get work out of your single leg now or penalize you for shooting one. And these guys are getting to you in new and different ways. And I think that's the interesting thing for me. Once it's on the ground, do we think that Jacare can submit any guy at 185? Yeah, we do believe that. So the interesting thing for me is that closing of distance. And for Tim Boetsch, you know that's going to happen. So your entire game for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, every day drilling in the back all week long and the hours before is what you're doing to step off and hurt him coming in. And it can't be an overcommitment. It can't be a flying knee through the air, because if you catch it, it has to be something that's reproducible. And I think that dynamic of this fight is what I'm most excited to see.
Super cool.
It just feels like the most frustrating path for Jacare ever since the Yoel Romero loss that many contested at the time. And then this past year, I mean, we had him at 205 where he had to come to New York, cut weight, make 185, and just to be on standby. And even with a brilliant performance on Saturday, if we look ahead against Tim Boetsch, we know he's just waiting around because Yoel Romero's waiting around for Michael Bisping. This guy will probably have to fight again. He just seems like he's a hamster running on a wheel in the middle of the middleweight division. And as you say, he's not getting any younger either. And this is someone that could be fighting for the title if not for that decision loss to Yoel Romero.
Yeah, luckily for Jacare, he's been around the block. He's been in martial arts for a long time, competing for ADCC, being a world jiu-jitsu champion, competing in Japan for various promotions.
He'd be primed for an interim title.
Would you be surprised?
No.
Of course, none of us would be surprised.
Yoel
Romero and Jacare could totally fight if Michael Bisping is delayed with his knee surgery.
Exactly.
Was that a rhetorical question? Because
you know
you
what?
would not be surprised.
Exactly. But when you think about it, there's so many options for Jacare right now, and he's not getting his title fight. And the way you make sure everybody knows that every opponent you have, put them away. Just look awesome, and it's like, okay, eventually you're going to get your crack at the championship because everybody's talking about you. You're part of that mix. You just have to make sure people remember you.
So successful people that get the thing that they want, they do it by not taking no for an answer. So your Jacare, or Damian Maia for that matter, also both Brazilians, both jiu-jitsu guys, both submission aces. Why do these guys not get that? So you look at it and you go, we're not getting the big money fight. We're not getting the fight for the title. Why? We need to find the answers. I don't know what the answer is.
They don't punch people in the head. That seems to be what a lot of people were trying to sell tickets, and the most exciting way of winning fights is doing what Stephen Thompson does, what Paul Daly does, punching people in the head and having them drop on the ground.
What's fascinating about that when you think about it is that actually shapes the fight. The fight itself is this pure natural thing that happens when two men go to fight. But if you start rewarding certain behavior choices and penalizing others, you inadvertently shape the world of combat, which is freaky and kind of bothers me in a way. I don't like the feeling. I don't like the thought of that. The organic nature with which the problem solving of fighting happens shouldn't be rewarded. Hey, well done, here's 50 grand, do it this way in the future. Fighting is natural, it should happen the way that it happens. That makes me sad.
Well, there's definitely something to that as well. I mean, we talk about how deep these divisions are. Sometimes there's multiple options for who's going to fight next. Damian Maia has a great argument. He's won 9 fights in a row, but Stephen Thompson just went to a draw with Tyron Woodley, and I think that Damian Maia, I definitely love to see that fight. I also kind of want to see this rematch with Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson. And when you have these divisions that are just loaded, and 170 and 185 are examples, you're going to upset guys because not everyone is going to get the next title fight. One guy is going to get that chance to fight for the championship next, and a lot of guys are going to have to wait.
Yeah, the reality is when you have such deep divisions, and we've been talking about 145, 155, 175, and now 185 pounds, especially 170. You think about all the matchups. You're telling me you wouldn't want to see Stephen Thompson versus Carlos Condit, whether a title's on the line or not. Wouldn't you like to see Woodley, against anybody? I'd like to see him against Matt Brown. I'd like to see him against Masvidal. I know they're ATT guys, but there are so many cool matchups. You introduced Robbie Lawler there. You have Nick Diaz. Who wouldn't want to see these fights? And that's what it comes down to. What is the most interesting for the big fan base? What is going to get them to pay for tickets? You throw Nick Diaz in the mix. I don't know if Damian Maia is one of these guys. If you're a martial arts fan, you understand how good Damian Maia is. We've been around the best fighters in the world, and they all marvel at him. But does he capture the imagination of the masses?
Pollock made an interesting point about reality. I hate reality a lot of the time. But if you go in and you take the 78 welterweights, all of them in the UFC, and you talk to them secretly, hey man, so what are your goals? I want to be world champion. Like out of 78, 68 will say that. The other 10 will be like, I'm old now, I'd like to make a few 100,000 before I'm done. 68 of them will say that one of them can. So that's a really good point. 2 of them can actually fight for that out of the 68.
I think there's a bunch of interim titles there.
So right. So 6 of them can be. 6.
The odds have increased exponentially over the last year. It's going down on Saturday. Ronaldo Jacare Souza against Tim Boetsch at UFC 208.